and welcome to the first, I guess not the first episode, it's kind of a zero issue if you're a comic book fan. It's kind of a preview of what to expect. Me and Jared Carrabis, we're doing From the Top Rope, a Barstool Wrestling podcast. A long time in the making. Jared, you have been our baseball writer for many years now.
Mm-hmm.
Not a lot of people know you as a wrestling guy, but you are a pretty big wrestling guy.
Huge wrestling guy.
So we're going to do an episode now kind of recapping last night's Extreme Rules. We're throwing this up on SoundCloud if you're listening to it now. And it'll be, like I said, what to expect from us. We're launching June 14th. We're going to be doing two kinds of shows, pay-per-view recaps, and then a normal Wednesday show where we'll talk news and a little bit of Raw and SmackDown, and then we'll have an interview with someone in the wrestling industry. For now, we're going to be talking Extreme Rules. You watched the pay-per-view last night, Carrabis?
Sure did, but way to shed the narrative that all wrestling fans are virgins by using a comic book reference 10 seconds into our wrestling podcast.
Yeah, I almost regret it, but not really, because if you get the reference, oh my God, it was a good analogy. I knocked that analogy out of the park. This is the zero issue of From the Top Rope.
Yeah, you definitely set the tone there that we definitely don't have sex.
We're gonna move on from that.
Okay.
I think we're gonna move on.
Okay, fair.
Last night was Extreme Rules. You wouldn't really know it if the title title of the show wasn't called that, because wasn't a lot of extreme things going on last night for a show that I feel like they deprive us now of these gimmick pay-per-views. Extreme Rules, Money in the Bank, TLC. They used to do a Fatal 4-Way pay-per-view. They did that. It was a one-off, horrendous. Mm-hmm. But for these gimmick pay-per-views, Hell in a Cell 2. They kind of deprive you of the matches all year, so we could stack them on this card, and there wasn't a ton of extreme stuff going on. I thought it was a good show regardless. I wish it was just a little more extreme if we're talking general.
Yeah. There were parts of it. Like one of the most extreme things that I saw was Alexa Bliss hit Bayley. She tried to hit her in the back and hit her in like the back of the neck. I was like,
yep.
That definitely didn't feel good. So yeah, and then obviously you knew that there was going to be the high spots with the Hardys and the cage match.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, in terms of extreme, I mean, there wasn't anything like usually when you go into a gimmick pay-per-view and there's matches like that and they call it Extreme Rules, you go into it thinking that you're going to see something that you haven't seen before. And there was nothing on that card that I haven't seen before.
Yeah, I definitely did, especially the main event, which I thought was really, really, really good. Like a great match. But it took a while to pick up because I think the whole crowd was expecting a lot of high spots to start the match, a lot of tables, bring out the ladders. There was no ladders. There was
ladders.
Some chairs, an announce table bump. It was a great match regardless, but you had to accept that you weren't going to be getting, like you said, something you've never seen before. We'll go through the show.
Hold on. I know that we'll talk more about the main event later, but let me just ask you, who did you think was going to win the main event?
I thought Finn until like early Saturday morning, when a few friends of mine were like, "We really think that like Joe's winning," because apparently like Heyman is really big on Joe, and obviously Heyman and Brock have a very real life connection, where I guess he could have pushed the idea to Brock. But I thought Finn leading up to it, like the actual build that they did, throw away the insider stuff. I thought Finn.
Okay, yeah, because I always I take a look at the Vegas odds before every pay-per-view because they're not 100% accurate, but I think Finn was the odds-on favorite in Vegas to win that match, and
I think till the very end. I think at the very end, the field like
switched.
skyrocketed. Yeah.
Okay, I mean I checked it the day of, so it must have literally been like right before the match.
Okay.
Yeah, we're both battling allergies, by the way.
Yeah.
But the whole thing about that card was that I feel like we've been saying this a lot about pay-per-views is that, the expectations have been so low that it has potential to be good because the expectations are so low. And I think that WWE, for as tone deaf as they come off, through the whole Daniel Bryan thing, they came off as tone deaf prior to that because they were like, the fans were like, this is our guy. This is what we want to see. And then they were going with Dave Bautista and just totally going with what they wanted to do and that's like the Vince McMahon mindset is that I know what they want. They don't know what they want. I
Yep.
give them what they want type thing.
Which this is the only
Um,
business where the fans are continuously told that they're wrong.
right.
Yeah.
Over and over and over again, which I think will change. I think once, Triple H has more power in creative. But um, yeah, I think, with this card, I think that they sort of paid attention to the fact that expectations were low and they tried to deliver in certain areas. And overall, I didn't like, what would you grade the pay-per-view?
Uh, like a B minus.
That's fair. That's fair. I would have said a B. I would have said a B.
Yeah,
I mean,
B minus
so
B. There was nothing I really hated on the show, but there
no.
was
So
the
the
main
thing that
event
I
was very
got,
good, but nothing blew me away.
yeah, I think what I got out of this is that this this wasn't a payoff pay-per-view. This was a set up future events
Yep,
pay-per-view, which I
correct.
like. I enjoy that. So now I'm curious, because the Hardy Boys lost the tag titles last night. What is that set up? Like, do we have a singles run, or are they going to try and get them back? Like, where do they go from here? And then obviously, Samoa Joe and Brock Lesnar. People are, obviously they have to do the hype machine thing. They're calling it a dream match. I think that's a little bit strong. But I was like, oh, the first thing I texted you was like, oh, okay, all
Yeah,
right, I see you. Like, it was refreshing because I was either expecting them to continue the superhero can never lose at anything Roman Reigns push, which would have been a rematch with Brock Lesnar, and they easily could have built that into something that would have been mildly interesting. And then Seth Rollins, another guy. Finn Balor had a perfect storyline. Like, I
hmm
never lost the Universal title. Um, but you get Samoa Joe, and that's interesting because it's like, oh, I didn't expect that. B, this is something that I didn't think we would see this early in his recent WWE tenure. So yeah, it's this pay-per-view, there weren't payoffs to major feuds. It kind of just set up, I think, where we're going from here, which I liked.
yeah, and especially throw away Vegas odds, throw away insider scoops, whatever. Samoa Joe winning that match was very surprising, I would say, to 90% of the casual fans.
Yeah.
And that's something that wrestling has been lacking is genuine surprises. And I think when Finn went up to the top rope and hit the coup de grace on Roman Reigns, I think everyone in that arena thought that he was about to win that match.
Yep.
In comes Joe, the clutch, and he wins. And there was like pretty genuine stunned faces on people, which obviously I love. But yeah, it is interesting to see where everyone goes from here in regards to Joe and Brock being called a dream match. It is a little strong, but when Joe was signed, that was immediately like the match that everyone said, like, oh, Joe and Brock would be really cool. I think Joe and Brock would be really cool like a decade ago, like a decade ago, Samoa Joe versus current day Brock would be
Mhm.
like the greatest hoss match ever. I'm still really excited for modern day Joe and modern day Brock at that god awful pay per view named Great Balls of Fire,
I
which
thank
they
God
ran a
you mentioned
commercial
that.
for last night.
Who the fuck? Whose idea was that? Like, who was
It
just like,
has to be
all right,
Vince
I got
because
it.
he's the
Like,
only
can you
one
just?
old enough to like. I think Vince. We've done a few test shows to give you a peek behind the curtain to pitch to the bosses, pitch to advertisers, whatever.
Yeah.
And we talked about how Vince kind of just realized that there's 1.3 billion people in India, and that's why Jinder Mahal is getting a push. I think Vince just heard that song for the first time, and he's like, "Oh boy, we're gonna go out to the swing clubs to this one."
Like, can you just picture all these guys in a boardroom, and it's like, all right, we got this big pay-per-view coming up. It's gonna be Brock and Samoa Joe. We need a big name for this pay-per-view. Great Balls of Fire. I love it. I love it. Let's go with it. It's my new favorite song. We're
It
going with it.
is.
It's like
It is
where
insane.
like, what were the alternatives to that? What did you come up with that was worse than that led you to this to being the best option?
It like when you look, especially down the line of every pay per view name, it's like Hell in a Cell, Battleground, Extreme Rules, Payback, and Great Balls of Fire.
Yeah, it's very
It
WCW-ish.
is, yeah, like early WCW, like early
Yeah,
90s WCW.
yeah.
And that is just, it's insane that made it past, a chain of command to eventually get approved. Someone posted the logo of it last night, and you can outline, there's like a fireball, I guess, because,
Mhm.
Great Balls of Fire. And the outline of it looks like a dick so much that it has to be a rib by the graphic designer being like, I can't believe I have to design a logo that says Great Balls of Fire. And the commercial
Well,
for it is very old-timey diner. Like, they have, like, Samoa Joe's Diner in the commercial, old-school Elvis cars. Like, I just...
I
On my
mean,
birthday,
you
nonetheless. They're
nailed it though.
embarrassing
Like
me on my birthday.
Jesus. But like the point that you made is 100% how it happened. Like you said, I don't know how it made it up the chain. It didn't. It was just probably Vince. It had to have been Vince. Like who, like out of all those decision makers that they have, like even like Stephanie, she's not probably involved in decisions like that. But Triple H, you think Triple H was like, yeah, yeah, I'm feeling that. Like
There's
that's a
no way.
good name
He
to
has
go
to
with.
know.
There's no chance. There's no chance. So I'm 100% blaming this on Vince.
Great balls of fire. I think I talked about this with my brother last night. I usually watch pay-per-views at my brother's house. We're big wrestling fans. And we both said GBUF, the acronym for Great Balls of Fire, is a much
Yeah.
better pay-per-view name than Great Balls of Fire, and it doesn't even mean anything. Just like GBUF. Oh, yeah, GBUF on pay-per-view.
Like, what is the worst pay-per-view name besides Great Balls of Fire?
Um, December to Dismember.
Mm,
That was not good.
yeah.
Most recently, Roadblock End of the Line, just because it
Yeah,
was
that
like the third roadblock of the year. Like we have roadblocks scheduled, so it clearly wasn't the end of the line.
yeah.
That wasn't great.
Mm.
There's not a lot of bad ones though. Why don't you just call this like Great American Bash?
You
Like
could
just
literally call it
steal it.
anything but Great Balls of Fire, and I think I would have been fine with it.
Yeah, not the best pay-per-view name. We're gonna get
No.
into the Extreme Rules card. We'll kind of go match by match. Did you happen to see the pre-show match, Kalisto and Apollo Crews?
I did not. I did not. I tuned in around. I saw the Alexa Bliss and Bailey match, and then I had asked you what did I miss, and then
Yep.
you said Miz and Dean Ambrose. So I went back and watched that one.
Yeah.
So then I saw
So
everything besides pretty much the pre-show.
the Kalisto Apollo Crews match was very surprisingly good. Like not surprising for I guess people that know what they're capable of, but surprising in the sense that they gave him time to let the match breathe. It was a 10-minute match. And Kalisto got to showcase like every flip he could possibly do. He did some crazy springboards to the outside. Apollo Crews was doing his moves, and Kalisto hit Samurai Del Sol off of Titus O'Neil on the apron. It's good, really, really good match for the pre-show. Kalisto's kind of becoming the king of the pre-show match with his matches against Del Rio, which I'm not a big Del Rio guy, but I like their pre-show matches. His matches against Ryback's last match in the WWE, I enjoyed a lot against Kalisto.
Did you?
The pre-show stopper, Ryback.
Yeah, like we can talk about him later. Keep going.
Okay. And then Miz versus Dean Ambrose for the IC title opened the show with the stipulation that if Dean Ambrose is disqualified, the title changes hands.
Mm-hmm.
I thought this was like the perfect opening match to the show. I was
Crowd
skeptical
was
in the
into it.
beginning because there's the big plot hole of like, why doesn't Maurice slide into the ring, smack the Miz in the face, and the match is over?
Right.
You know, and that didn't happen. And I was like, if you can get past that logic, the match
It
can
did
be
happen.
good. And then it happened. So
Yeah.
it was like, okay, this makes a lot of sense. And they played, it was very like almost like old school psychology in the whole match of Dean Ambrose not wanting to get DQ'd, but The Miz making it very hard for that to happen, trying to put everything in the way. He had Maurice slap him. He threw a chair at Ambrose. He untied the turnbuckle padding. I thought, I mean, The Miz is, I've said this time and time again, The Miz is just so good. There's pretty much, if you gave me a babyface and said, who was struggling to get over it and said, who should they feud with, I would tell you The Miz every time. Because The Miz can
Yeah,
get
The
that
Miz-
reaction out of the crowd.
I think he's very underappreciated, and I do think that, you know, I don't want to say it's stale, the fact that he keeps winning and losing the Intercontinental title.
Mhm.
I think that this is his kind of ceiling. Like, I don't think he's ever going to re-enter the WWE title picture. I think that, you know, IC title is kind of where he maxes out, but the work that he does is very strong. And the points that, you know, Daniel Bryan made in that little, you know, is it a work, is it a shoot interview about him being like a safe worker. And yeah, I mean, he is a safe worker, but I don't really see that as a bad thing.
Yeah, that's not a knock on anyone.
Yeah, it's
Like,
not.
You protect your opponents in the ring. It's like, well, like, yeah, this wrestling's a work. That's what we do here.
Yeah. Well, even just in terms of himself and making literally zero high risk maneuvers, like, not doing the flying headbutt, not like crashing through tables and ladders and things of that nature. But yeah, I think that the Miz's mic work and just his character is one of the strongest in the company. And I feel like he doesn't get enough credit for that because, he's been around for a while. I think that some fans, not all fans, can't really relate to him and don't accept him as a true WWE guy because he came from, a reality TV show before he got here. He wasn't on the indies, and you know how much, the internet fans love guys that come from the indies first. But yeah, I'll totally give Miz his props in that, he's been able to stay relevant for a long period of time, and he is one of the best in-ring workers, whether you want to give him credit for that or not.
Oh yeah, absolutely. You look at he had that fatal four-way at last year's Extreme Rules against Cesaro, Sami Zayn, and Kevin Owens that I thought was like 5 stars, like match of the year contender. Obviously, it's hard to have a bad match with those three, but then you look at his feud with Dolph Ziggler, where every single match in that feud, they had so many matches, whether it be on SmackDown or whether it be on pay-per-view, that every one I was kind of dreading in the sense that, like, what can they do differently? Like, Dolph Ziggler's had feuds with Kevin Owens, who I think is my favorite worker in the company, where I'm just like, it's very good matches, but they're all the same. The Miz changed it up every single time, and it was entertaining every single time. And I think fans started to come around on him after the Talking Smack stuff, and he did Raw Talk last night and was really good on that as well. He's very good impromptu, and like that's why you said he can't get past the IC, or you don't think he'll get past the IC level, and I agree now that he's on Raw. I think he was still on SmackDown. He had a shot at, reaching up. I mean, James Ellsworth was getting shots at the world title. So
True.
I think The Miz in a world title feud could have happened. I thought The Miz versus John Cena in a world title feud was a possibility at one point when Cena won the title off of AJ.
Yep.
But now that he's on Raw, that'll be hard to happen for him. But I thought it was great. I thought the finish was really good, where he had Maurice smack him. The ref was, very clearly onto it, wasn't going to DQ Ambrose because of it. And then he throws Maurice out. The referee was distracted by Ambrose getting pushed into him, and that allowed Miz to hit the skull-crushing finale and win. We talked about doing a segment on the show. How would you book it? Where sometimes if something you don't like happens, we'll redo it. I liked this, but I'm going to cash in my how would you book it on this segment for future. I think this needs to turn into an IC title feud for Seth Rollins, who has had difficulty getting over as a babyface and really connecting with the crowd on the mic. I think The Miz can carry him through a very, very good feud. And I think that IC title, and this has kind of been said so many times that it's cliche and it's a trope, but that IC title can once again be the workhorse title. And I'm not a big Seth Rollins guy, but I think that can be his title. And I think if he holds that title, the fans that respect Rollins, which is a lot of them, will respect the title more than it has been.
I would hate that because I am a Seth Rollins guy, and I know that you're not. But when he was in the title picture, I enjoyed that. So obviously he's borrowed the pedigree from Triple H, and when he was sort of in the title picture, holding the title, it felt like he was almost reliving Triple H's career. Like there were a lot of parallels with, first ever heel run for Triple H. And I enjoyed that. I enjoyed watching and reliving some of those storylines with a guy who can definitely carry that bad guy, moniker. But I don't buy into babyface Seth Rollins. I don't enjoy that unless you're going to be in the Shield again. That's the only way that I could really buy into that. And even then, I really don't like babyface Shield. I didn't enjoy that very much. I mean, I did enjoy the feud with the Evolution, but with Seth Rollins, I kind of in your suggestion about the Intercontinental title, I think back to when Daniel Bryan won the Intercontinental title in that ladder match in WrestleMania the year after he main evented and won the title. I just looked at that as like, I mean, like, I'm glad that he won the match and like he gets a WrestleMania moment, quote unquote, but it's a step down. Like it's, you can be a great wrestler and hold that title, but I think the casual fan will always just be like, oh, well, if he's the Intercontinental Champion, then that just means that he's not relevant or good enough to be the WWE Champion. So,
Yeah,
for a guy
but
like Seth Rollins that battled back from that injury and, does the surgery and the rehab and he comes back and he has the match against Triple H, which a lot of people didn't enjoy, but I definitely enjoyed the build and the story to it. I mean, I can't really tell you any moments that happened in that match that really stuck out to me.
yeah,
But
it's the Stephanie table bump was the big spot, and Triple H has
yeah,
been relying on the Stephanie bump in his matches recently, which is,
yeah.
a little eye roll worthy.
Yeah, but I just think that Rollins is too talented, too good of a character to kind of be relegated to the IC title picture.
Well, the way you can play it in a way where you look at Brock Lesnar, who's the Universal Champion, supposedly the main champion on Raw. He's never on Raw. So if Seth
Right.
Rollins wins the IC title, that can main event every show if you want it to, because that's now the main title on Raw. The
Yeah.
Cruiserweight title certainly isn't, even though it could be if they wanted to book it correctly. I think that could be, and I'm not saying he's always in the IC title picture. He can move back up to the world title picture, and he will. But right now, while he's having trouble connecting to the fans, I think the best move for him would be go down, feud with the Miz for the IC title, have the Miz cut promos good enough to get the crowd behind Seth Rollins, and then eventually drop it to, an up and comer. I don't really care who it is.
How much did the injury fuck Seth Rollins, do you think?
You know what fucked Seth Rollins? It wasn't the injury. It was bringing him back as the exact same character as he was when he left. Because fans were ready to buy in as a babyface. Last year at Extreme Rules, he returned. So almost a year ago to the day. And I was there, and it was one of the loudest pops I've ever heard in my entire life, was him running to the ring, giving Roman Reigns the pedigree. Fans were absolutely ready for him as a white-hot babyface at that point. And then he was immediately the next night just the same, ha, ha, ha.
Yeah.
And it
Well,
was
because he went back to being a heel.
Yeah. And his character didn't even change. He wasn't now like a rejuvenated heel. He was the same kind of shit heel, like cheat to win matches. He beat Roman Reigns clean at the pay-per-view afterwards, but that's what screwed him more than the injury, I think.
You know what that reminds me of is when Dolph cashed in the Money in the Bank on Del Rio and got one of the loudest pops I've ever heard in my entire life. And then the next night comes out and cuts a heel promo. It's like, just run with him as a babyface. Like, clearly
fans
it's
want
gonna
to buy
work.
in. Like, just that's been an issue with WWE recently, is they don't let things happen real organically.
Yeah,
and that used to be a big thing. The next match was Rich Swann and Sasha Banks versus Noam Dar and Alicia Fox. It was a really quick, like 5-minute match. There's nothing special really. Rich Swann is great. Noam Dar, I think, is really good. Sasha, this feels like a step down for Sasha, definitely. But what else is there for her to do? She's another one that's kind of not connecting as a babyface as well as she did as a heel. Noam Dar and Alicia Fox, I will say this about this match because there's not much to say. And I've said this in my blogs. It was pointed out to me by a friend that these two have the chemistry of a brother and sister, and that you'll never be able to unsee that because the chemistry is not that they are dating. It is almost to the point where it's intentional. Like, there's no way they want us to believe that these two are having relations in any way.
Wait, Sasha and Swan?
No, Noam Dar and Alicia Fox.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it is weird. But did you happen to catch the post show for the pay-per-view?
Yeah.
And how defensive that Sasha got, like, not in character whatsoever when they suggested that she should go out for like drinks in Baltimore with Swan, and she was like, "Actually, I'm married," and it's like, that was real. That was Mercedes talking. That wasn't Sasha Banks.
Yeah, it was
because
like, okay, like they're not telling you like go get married to Rich Swan. Like go get a drink with him. You
And
just had a
even if
big
they
win.
did,
Like in kayfabe, you just got a big win. Like go celebrate with him. Like fans want to see you guys have fun together. You're both baby faces.
Right. Her character never ever speaks of her real personal life because Sasha Banks isn't married. Mercedes is married. That I just found that very strange. It was odd.
Yeah. Next match was the women's title match, kendo stick on a pole match. Hashtag kendo stick was in the corner. I thought that was one of the more ridiculous hashtags they've ever had. I'm sure Great Balls of Fire will, get a 1-over on that. Alexa Bliss defeats Bayley, continues the absolutely, completely over-the-top botched run of Bayley on the main roster.
Yeah.
When she made her entrance, her inflatable tube men on the ramp half inflated, and that was a great metaphor for her run on the main roster. And Alexa didn't cheat to win. She kind of beat Bayley clean for the second weekend, or for the second pay-per-view in a row. Got the kendo stick. I thought they were going to run the angle where Alexa couldn't reach the kendo stick on the top rope. She did. She got it. She beat the hell out of her, like you said. Hit Bayley pretty much in the face with it.
Mm-hmm.
And then just won with a DDT. You kind of had an issue with her using a DDT to win, right?
Don't like that. I don't like that at all. And I know you made the point that, obviously Jake the Snake Roberts is the guy who made the DDT a thing, a legit finisher. But that was a long time ago, and everyone just casually uses DDTs now, which I don't like. I mean, I know. I think it was Ryback was talking about this on one of his podcasts about how you need to protect your finisher, and I think he said the only guy that's ever kicked out of his finisher was the Big Show, and it was part of like a punishment from Vince, where like that's how it was drawn up. But the DDT is probably the least protected finishing move in wrestling history, not just WWE history, in professional wrestling history. So you can't just bring it back. I mean, I think Gangrel used a modified version of the DDT where he kind of like lifted the guy up before he gave the DDT. But this is, I mean, Alexa Bliss's finisher is just a standard DDT. And I would be fine if it were someone, that's not as high up in the division as Alexa Bliss. Like, I think she's the fucking top dog. I think that Charlotte is the most talented, but as far as a women's wrestler who has the most going for her, I think Alexa Bliss is it. I think she's the number one. And it's almost like, and I'm going to make a lot of baseball references because that's the only thing that my brain has to. Usually if I do a wrestling podcast, no. If I do a baseball podcast, I'll use wrestling references. But now that it's a wrestling podcast, now I have to use baseball references. But Alexa Bliss is a lot like Mike Piazza. Like, Mike Piazza was drafted in like the 40-something round, and then he came up, and now he's a Hall of Famer. Alexa Bliss, like, she was really when she was down in NXT, I heard her name like one time, but it was in the context of, she's a fitness model. She's hot. No one ever talked about how she was this great in-ring performer, and she was great on the mic, and her character was awesome. She just kind of came out of nowhere, and since she's been on the main roster, I think she's been the most must-see women's wrestler, and she wasn't part of the whole revolution. She wasn't Sasha Banks. She wasn't Charlotte. She wasn't Becky. She wasn't Bayley. Those were the four that everyone's like, all right, these are the women that you need to pay attention to. She was never included in that category, but I think, since those four have come up, Alexa Bliss is the outsider, and she's been the most interesting out of all of them.
I agree, and she's been able to do the Miz thing almost, where she's able to get the crowd against her despite how good she is, which wrestling fans are very smart nowadays. If you're good, they're going to cheer for you just because of it. And she gets big pops when her music hits. When she goes out there and cuts promos, we'll take away this, the most recent promo she cut. Not very good. Not really her fault, though. She'll get the crowd against her immediately. She shuts down the what chants like nobody else. She's very, very, very good. In regards to the DDT, I have no issue with it, because if she is going to use it as a finish, I can buy pretty much any move as a finisher, as long as it is finishing matches, on pace. Dean Ambrose uses a DDT as his finisher. He does the little double hook DDT. Bobby Roode does a DDT as a finisher. The DDT is almost like what the super kick is today, where Shawn Michaels used it forever, and pretty much everyone on the main roster is hitting super kicks. I don't really have an issue with it. If it's ending matches, it's ending matches. I just wish something happened in this match so Bayley could look a little bit better. It's going to be hard to recover from the current run Bayley's on.
Hold on. Before we get into that, I'm not done with the DDT. Like, you mentioned the super kick. So at least, like, if Dolph gives somebody a super kick, there's at least a false finish from that. You know what I mean? Like, if
but there's not for many people on the main roster. Like, Kevin Owens uses a super kick, never a false finish, really. Neville
I
hit a
don't
few
really.
super kicks on this show. Usos hit
I don't
super kicks all the time.
associate the super kick with Owens. I mean, it's definitely um, like Dolph. I think is most associated with it now, and I think who else uses one? Oh, Del
Rollins,
Rio was using one,
Rollins
kind of.
uses the one where the guy's on the knees. Just looking down the
Yeah,
list of the people that are on the show, like Kalisto, Rich Swann, uh, I think Cesaro's hit some super kicks, like Neville, Aries, both of them, Seth Rollins. A lot of people use super kicks now.
yeah. But I think with Dolph as the example, there are some false finishes, and when he does do it, there's like an like reaction from the crowd.
Yeah.
Whereas if you're in just a regular match and the Miz drops a DDT on you, no one is expecting a 3 count or even close to it. It's just that he might not even go for the cover after giving a DDT. So that's how watered down the DDT has become. So to your point about, you don't mind it as a finish as long as it finishes. I think what bothers me the most is that it's Alexa Bliss's finish. Like, if you're the top dog in your division, you need to have a finisher that really wows me, or like it's something that I'm looking forward to
And I
seeing
think
at the end of
Alexa
the
has
match.
that in the top rope finish she does.
Yeah,
I don't even know how I would describe it on a podcast, but she like jumps off the top rope and spins 180 degrees and lands on her opponent the other way.
yeah. Just do
She
that.
kind of has that. I don't know why she's not doing that. It could be a knee thing. I know if you have knee issues, top rope moves aren't great. Next match, steel cage match for the WWE Raw Tag Team Championships. 15 minutes on the dot. Cesaro and Sheamus versus the Hardy Boys. Really good match, I thought.
Yeah, yeah. I thought so. The thing about the Hardys is that they're now 67 years into their professional wrestling careers. So there's not much that they can do that you haven't already seen, but that doesn't make them boring, because the things that they do in big matches are always going to be fascinating to wrestling fans, especially live in person. I mean, if you ever have the chance to go and watch them live in person, I've always found that some of the things that you see on TV that are very exciting cannot be as exciting if you see them in person. Like Kalisto, what pay-per-view is that where he did his finishing move off a
that
ladder?
was Money in the Bank.
Okay, so I was there.
Or
Was
no, it was
Money in the Bank?
TLC. It was TLC.
Yeah, it was TLC.
Yep.
Yeah, it's TLC. So I was there in the front row. Like, we were front row, floor, center, and like he basically did that in my lap. Like, that was one of the craziest things I've ever seen in my life. But yeah, I think with the Hardys, it's like Sheamus and Cesaro they work well as a cohesive unit. I like them as a tag team. I don't really hate them as heels. I almost
I
them.
dig them as heels. I think the whole look they got going on with like the bomber jackets, the aviators, and the kilts is like a very good look. And I thought this was a much needed win for them.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, because but the main takeaway here is, now that the Hardys don't have the tag titles, does this mean that they kind of is there a singles path here, or do they go back for the tag titles? That's what I need to know.
I think it'll be a one-off back for the tag titles. They'll do the invoking the rematch clause. It might even be like on Raw. I'm not even going to say it'll be the next pay-per-view. And then I think you have to separate them. Even if they're not doing the broken stuff, which apparently they have no plans to do the broken stuff now. Even if you're not going to do that, I think it's a good move to separate them, if just for babyface Jeff Hardy on the roster. Matt, it's tough. If he's not going to do the broken gimmick, it's going to be tough to get him super over. He's a very creative person. He was going to be able to take over TNA creative if they kept him. So I'm sure he'll think of something. But, to a WWE fan who's never seen their TNA run, Jeff is the star, and Matt is the other brother who didn't have the rainbow-colored hair and didn't do the Swanton Bomb. I think they'll do a one-off and then probably separate at some point. If they're going to do a singles feud between them without the broken stuff, they better keep it quick, because they obviously didn't have the best singles feuds in WWE before TNA. In this match, though, I thought it was really tag team steel cage matches are really unique because both partners have to escape the cage. So we saw it happen in this match where Jeff escaped and then Matt was in a 2-on-1 situation with Sheamus and Cesaro. making it much, much, much harder for him to escape. And it was just such a good angle to play up with the baby face being Matt and not Jeff, I thought.
Mm-hmm.
And then obviously Jeff went up to the top, did the whisper in the wind off the cage like I thought he would. He loves doing that off the cage. It is crazy, though, how effortless it looked.
Yes.
My brother turned to me. He's like, "That it's almost not impressive because he did it so casually. Like,
there's no second
39
thought.
years old. Yeah, didn't look back. Just walked to the top of the cage, turned around, did like that backwards spinning front flip. And then the finish was really good, too, of Matt realizing Jeff pretty much sacrificed his body for him, tried to drag his dead body out of the cage, and Sheamus and Cesaro just happened to beat him out by a second. Really good match.
Yeah.
This was the IC title match and the main event are what kind of makes this a very enjoyable show for me.
Yeah, and I think that, whenever you have the Hardy Boys in a, gimmick match, you're going to get some, holy shit moment out of it. That's just what they do. That's why they're here. But yeah, like I said, and you mentioned they're not going to go with the broken gimmick like at all. Like that's just decided. Is that because
it's
they
not
can't
decided?
Get the rights to it?
I think they can get the rights. I don't think they want to put up with the hassle of getting the rights. I saw there was like on Twitter, someone had some leaked emails where TNA almost, I guess Anthem, the company that now owns TNA, reached out to WWE's lawyers and were like, "We know that you're coming after the broken gimmick. Just to let you know, there will be a lawsuit involved." And the WWE lawyers emailed back and they were like, "We have no intention of doing the broken gimmick, so I don't know what you're talking about." Which, like, it's just a bad idea. Like, that should be what you are going after.
Right.
The merchandise sales alone to come from the Delete, the Broken Mat, bring in Senor Benjamin, bring everyone back. Like, the merch sales alone should pay for whatever lawsuit, whatever legal rights you need to get. And my buddy went back. They are so petty. TNA is so petty that every single YouTube video where Broken Matt or Broken Jeff or Broken Hardys is in the title, they have gone back and put a trademark next to it.
Really?
Which is an all-time petty move by TNA.
That's insane. Like, I don't know. I guess that's just what they have to hang on to. Like, they're a broken company. So it's just like,
very much so. Another company, by the way, they're currently on an India tour. They just went to India. Like, be more transparent that you're trying to be WWE.
Yeah, WWE should sue them for tapping into India.
Yeah.
India is now WWE territory because we have Jinder Mahal.
Yeah, it really is. So Cesaro and Sheamus, new tag champs. Another weird fact about this, the Hardys won, not their first run, but I guess their second run in the WWE, won the tag team championships on April 2nd, lost them on June 4th. This run, they won the WWE Tag Team Championships on April 2nd, lost them on June 4th. Just a very weird coincidence there.
Next
match.
Hold on. Before you move on.
Okay.
So I think we both agree that the Hardys are not going to win back the tag titles.
Yes.
Who challenges Sheamus and Cesaro in their next feud?
I would say the Revival. Cass, right? No, I would say the Revival, but
really,
I think Enzo and Cass. I think they might break them up, which I think would be a horrible move. They did the handshake thing though, where Corey Graves, when Enzo got attacked, said, "I'd like to shake the hand of the person that attacked Enzo." And then the next week, we had Cass come out and shake Corey Graves' hand, not in the like I attacked Enzo way, but in the like, we're cool, right? Like you're not gonna accuse me of doing that. And then I had a very, very long handshake with him that makes me think they might do a feud between these two. It would be a bad idea. You got to do baby faces challenging, though, so maybe you do that, and that's how you break them up.
Yeah.
But eventually the Revival's got to get a tag team title shot.
But, like, Enzo and Cass were red hot when they debuted, and they never gave them a title run.
I think they still are, regardless of that. And they never gave them a title run in NXT either. It was kind of their charm that they never won the tag titles, and they came close so many times. But you got to have them win if they're not going to win the titles. They can't lose every match, which they have been doing. They still get the biggest pop at every live show I go to. And it could be because I'm from New Jersey, and all the shows I'm going to are in New Jersey and New York, and that's where they're from. But they still get the biggest pops. I think it'd be a bad move to break them up. I think maybe they go revival. Maybe they do an impromptu tag team of two baby faces that haven't tagged before. Cruiserweight Championship match was next. The third longest match on the show and the slowest paced, which for cruiserweights is very clear that they don't know how to book this division.
No.
And there's so much purple. There is a catastrophic amount of purple all over the arena. They light the crowd purple. The entrance ramp is purple. The ropes are purple. The canvas is different. Purple logos on it. Purple logos on the turnbuckles. It makes it feel like a circus sideshow act. Like, it doesn't feel like this was on Extreme Rules. It feels like we had, like, a cutaway to 205 Live, which is not what you want. Like, way to tell the audience, like, yeah, these guys aren't good enough to hang with the big dogs, so we're putting them in, purple outfits and purple stage, and, like, just don't change the ropes. It's unnecessary. Don't change the lighting. These guys are part of the main roster. They're in a different division.
Yeah.
That shouldn't, like... The crowd, like, starts dreading it. There's beach balls flying again. I hate the beach balls. Every cruiserweight match makes me hate WWE crowds, but it's to the fault of whoever's putting these matches together. Even in this one, it was a submission match, which the only way to win is by submission, meaning you cannot get disqualified. Meaning, by definition, a submission match is no DQ, and they were doing a count-out spot. I don't know which producer put that together, but that's just lazy.
Yeah, so I am notorious for fast-forwarding through the cruiserweight matches, but I will admit that Neville and Austin Aries are the only two guys worth watching in that division, at least in my opinion. And I'm not saying that the other guys aren't talented. Sure, they're talented. I just don't enjoy watching them. I don't, and it's because they just threw the division together. And they introduced a bunch of new guys all at the same time. And I didn't know any of their stories. I didn't have any reason whatsoever to care about them. And again, to your point about how it's just they treat it like it's a completely separate entity from the remainder of the entire show.
Yep.
That just says to me, like, this isn't, part of the show. It's just, here's like a little break in the show. Like, we're gonna do this now.
It feels like a break. It does.
Yeah, it's like we'll come back to the regularly scheduled programming after this cruiserweight match. But I do enjoy Neville. I do enjoy Austin Aries. But it's like these guys can't fight forever. I mean, it's not going to be Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn. And if they do, spin off 3-4 pay-per-view matches, it's like, okay, where do you go from here? Because outside of these two guys, do you really have anyone that interesting to be in the cruiserweight title picture that fans are? I mean, if they're not buying into this, which I think that some are, it's obviously not 100%, but if there are some casual wrestling fans that are paying attention to the cruiserweight division because of these two guys, who are you going to enter into the picture that's going to make me either care the same or more? Because there's definitely not someone that's going to make me care more.
So my gripe is that I feel like this division is so deep with people that can be in the division, and they've all been used incorrectly. Like Cedric Alexander is a big one for me.
Yeah.
Where he was so likable in the Cruiserweight Classic, and he lost his match against Kota Ibushi, and the crowd was chanting, "Thank you, Cedric. Please sign Cedric." Triple H came out during the Cruiserweight Classic, shook Cedric's hand, and gave the crowd a thumbs up, like, we are signing this guy.
Yeah.
And he walked away from a Ring of Honor contract opportunity to just try out for the Cruiserweight Classic. Walked away from it all, had to support his family. Like, this was like, if I don't get signed from the Cruiserweight Classic, like, I'm fucked because I have a family. Mm-hmm. And that's a very real storyline that they could have told. And instead, as soon as he was on the main roster, and they told it in the Cruiserweight Classic, it made him super likable, a perfect underdog story. As soon as he was on the main roster, they put him with Alicia Fox as his girlfriend and did a really bad dating angle. It was like, this guy, you just told us in the Cruiserweight Classic that he has a wife and he has a family at home. And that's what makes him so likable. And you're going to put him with Alicia Fox, who's been nothing but a kiss of death to who she manages. And that might not be her fault, but you look at her track record, that's what it is. Yeah. You look at Rich Swann, a guy that I know personally. His parents died when he was like 15. His mom died, and when he was 15, his dad died, and when he was 16, his mom died. He had to drop out of high school to get a job in Baltimore. He got involved in gangs. He got shot. He has been living alone since he was 16, and every cent he got went towards wrestling training. All he wanted to do was be a wrestler. Like, that's a story you could tell, but instead, he just loves to dance. And it's like,
Yeah. I feel like they tell that story though? I mean, like they didn't do it in like promos. I don't think they had him cut a promo to tell it. I think they just like casually mentioned it
they
on the
might have
broadcast.
mentioned it. I'm sure they have. You don't even need to have him cut promos, though. If you watch NXT, they do videos for Roderick Strong, where Triple H has admitted, and this has been a gripe of Roderick Strong for years for me, is that he's not very interesting on the mic. He's not. He doesn't make you feel any way about him. You don't hate him. You don't like him. He's very vanilla. But they went back and they told his real life story in video vignettes, and that his dad was like an alcoholic drug addict that shot his mom. Or it might have been the other way around, but that is like, holy shit, like this is an underdog. This is someone that's battled through adversity. They need to play those for people, and it makes me worry for guys like Johnny Gargano and Tommaso Ciampa, who are so good in NXT that, like, if they bring them up as cruiserweights, they're going to fail because it's just the division is designed to fail. Neville has been awesome. Austin Aries has really stepped it up since feuding with Neville. I love that we have a very dominant champion in Neville. Like, the division has a dominant champion. The title's not been flip-flopping like it did in the beginning. But there's just so much opportunity in the Cruiserweight division. The Cruiserweight Classic was like my favorite thing the company ever did almost. I was so high on that. And like I said about the IC title, how it could be main eventing shows because the Brock Lesnar's not there every week. If they booked it correctly, fans would care about the Cruiserweight title more than any other title in the company. Raw, SmackDown, NXT. That is the title. That's the division with the most talented wrestlers. Instead, they tell them to go out there, have a 17-minute and 35-second slow-paced match that doesn't make much sense psychology-wise. It's frustrating.
Who do you think, off the top of your head, first name that comes to mind, who's the most cringeworthy wrestler in the Cruiserweight division?
A name doesn't shoot out, if we're being honest.
Really?
There's not one name that shoots out. Who's your name?
T.J. Perkins.
Okay, actually, yeah. T.J. Perkins. Absolutely T.J. Perkins.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now that you said that, I
time-
actually forgot about TJP. He's the one. The dabbing,
Yeah.
the video game references, everything. He's the one, and he won the Cruiserweight Classic. He was the very first Cruiserweight champion, and he was another one that had an awesome story. He won the title. He was the MVP of the tournament, and I'm not a big fan of his. I'm really not.
Right.
But I have to admit, he was the MVP of the tournament, and afterwards I think he had a key on a necklace, and he was like, this is the key to my first apartment. And, like, I always have this knowing that, like, I always needed somewhere to, if I ever needed somewhere to go back to, I could go back. And now that I won this, like, this is my success. I could throw this out because I'll never be going back there. And it was like, immediately, you like this dude that is kind of unlikable. He dresses like a douchebag. He does dabs.
Yeah.
He's, making video game references everywhere. Makes him likable. And then as soon as he was brought up, everyone was like, all right, they got to take the title off this guy.
Yeah. Yeah, not a big TJ Perkins guy. But like I said, I fast forward if they like, all right, it's cruiserweight time. Like, all right, cool. No, it's fast forward time because I can't do it.
Yeah, I watch every match, but it's hard to get into because it's very different than what I enjoyed them doing last summer. Obviously, the main event, we talked about it a little bit at the beginning of the show. It was Samoa Joe versus Roman Reigns versus Seth Rollins versus Finn Balor versus Bray Wyatt for the number one contendership of the Universal title for the shot at the title at G-Buff, Great Balls of Fire. Awesome match. I said it in the beginning. It took a little bit to get going because I think the crowd expected tables to come out right away and big high spots to happen right away, and they didn't. It was kind of the generic way a fatal four-way, or in this case a fatal five-way, would split up. Roman was just chilling out in the corner.
Yeah, I saw your GIF.
Yeah, and everyone else was going one-on-one on the outside. Really, really not bad opening. Like, nothing about it was like, oh, this is bad, but it was taking a bit to get going. The crowd was taking a bit to get into it. Yeah. And as soon as they did a spot, my favorite spot of the match, actually, was Finn Balor's, like, penalty kick on the apron to Roman on the outside. Roman sold that so well. As soon as that happened, things kicked into super high gear, and this match was like, it went from this is pretty good to this is fucking awesome.
Yeah. I enjoyed it a lot. And like I said, one of the things that I enjoyed the most was the unpredictability of the outcome. Because if you were to ask me prior to the match to rank the top three guys that I thought would win, it would have been Finn, Roman, and Rollins. I didn't even have Joe in my top three for guys that, because I just think that I just know how the company works, and they're not always going to reward the guy that makes the most sense, or the guy that the crowd wants, or the guy that the internet fans want. And I feel like Joe, it doesn't really fit into all those categories, but I think that he fits into some of them, and that it does make a ton of sense to have him, go against Brock Lesnar. Because once I saw that Finn Balor was the Vegas favorite to win, I was like, it's like, yeah, I get it. I love Balor. I think he's great. I think he's like, his story makes sense to challenge for the Universal title again because he technically never lost it. But I'm not going to believe if he goes up against Brock Lesnar and wins. Like in real life, he would get murdered by Brock Lesnar. He wouldn't just lose a match, he would get murdered. He would lose his life. So give me the guy that's actually going to be a realistic fit to contend for the title against Brock Lesnar, and that guy was Samoa Joe. So I think that they made the right choice.
It's a great choice. Something about this match, not to go back to Finn real quick, but did you see his 24 special on the network?
No.
I would recommend it. I think it's one of the best things they've ever put on the network. It's like,
Is it new?
Yeah, brand new.
Okay. It's probably like the only one that I haven't seen.
It's like an hour long. It's pretty much like the other 24 specials, but it follows him through his injury, through his recovery, and through his return. And that's another thing that you could do. Just if anyone's struggling to get over and they're even slightly likable, you give them a 24 special on the network. Those things make me love you. But the great thing about this match is everyone shone in their own way. So like Finn, I thought was the star of the match. Which was good because he was the one taking the pinfall or the submission. He didn't tap, he passed out, which is obviously the strong way to handle that.
Very Stone Cold Bret Hartish of them.
But because he was taking that, I think he was the star of the match. He had the most offense, all that. I thought Roman and Seth, their exchange was awesome, just like their match on Raw. They redid the turnbuckle powerbomb into the Superman punch. Great spot. Seth obviously got to do the dive through the table. Roman got to do the spear through the barricade. And then Joe, who's the heel, didn't do as much and still got the win, which makes you dislike him as a heel.
Right.
And Bray didn't really shine. Bray was the only one where I didn't come out of the match thinking like he was handled very well in that match. But he got to tag team with Samoa Joe in the beginning and kind of team up against the baby faces. So you could explore that eventually, I suppose.
Yeah.
The thing about Seth in this match that like I said, I'm not a big Seth guy. They've done a very bad job going back to Alexa Bliss. The DDT, at least, it's been established. She's going to finish matches with this. This is her finisher. Seth Rollins' new finisher has been not established at all. And it's the like Rainmaker. If you know New Japan, it's the Rainmaker into the knee, which is a reversal that Kenny Omega uses. Much like most of Rollins' offense, it's a Kenny Omega move. And he, like, when he sets people up for it, they didn't react. And when he set Roman up for the corner powerbomb, which is pretty much the same setup as the pedigree, minus hooking the arms, they popped. Like, as soon as he had Reigns between his legs, they popped. And I was like, oh, that's an indicator that they still think the pedigree is Seth Rollins' finisher.
Right.
Which is not good. And he didn't even hit it in this match for, like, a near fall. He missed it, which I think he's only hit it and, like, won a match with it once. And that's been his finisher since WrestleMania, the day after WrestleMania. So it's like...
It's been a while.
It's been a while, and nobody knows that it's his finisher. So that is not a great look. Are
you surprised that they haven't retired the buckle bomb?
Yeah, I am. Because you retire the curb stomp, which has never hurt anybody. I understand why they retire the curb stomp, because, like, if a kid does it to his friend,
right,
and his friend dies, like, it's on WWE almost, even though they do the don't try it at home. But the buckle bomb has hurt 2 people now, like really bad injuries. So I am surprised they haven't retired that. And I don't even like that he does it. I don't like that he does the flipping power bomb that hurt his knee in the first place. Just because I'm like, from a character standpoint, why would you do that again? That's just stupid.
Right.
I don't like that he does. Doesn't have anything to do with character-wise. The Phoenix Splash where he lands on his feet every time, he pretty much never hits it. That just makes me nervous for his knee because holy shit, dude, like you blew out your knee real bad. You got balls to do that, so I kind of give him props for that.
Yeah.
Another side note about this match, I really like that Finn was not Demon Finn. He didn't wear the paint. He was just
Did you
Finn
think
Balor.
he was going to be?
I didn't know. I went back and forth, but I didn't think so. But I was hoping, like, in NXT, he was the Demon for every TakeOver special. But that was because there was only, like, 4 or 5 a year. So every time it was special. Unless it's special, I think the Demon should be held off for, like, SummerSlam, maybe Survivor Series, maybe the Royal Rumble, and WrestleMania. It should be a 2 to 4 time a year thing. So it is special every time, and so it's really cool every time. And I don't think they should harp on the fact that he's a different person. Like at SummerSlam when he was the Demon, they announced him as the Demon King. And it was like, he's still Finn Balor. He's wearing war paint. It's not like he turns into a different person.
Yeah.
But I like that he wasn't the Demon this time, and he's a very cool looking guy without being the Demon with the leather jacket.
Has he ever
and
not
all that.
gone over as the Demon?
Yeah, once ever Samoa Joe beat him in a cage match in NXT. And it was a weird booking decision because you would think with a cage match, if you want Joe to go over and you want Finn to be a Demon, cage match is a good way around that because Joe could escape the cage and then he's never been pinned as the Demon.
Yep.
But he got pinned.
Huh.
That was, it was, I want to say it was one of his final TakeOver matches, if not his final. It was TakeOver The End, I believe it was called. That kind of wraps it up for the pay-per-view, though. We had some harps, but overall it was a good show. If you haven't seen it and you're like, what's worth watching? I would say Miz versus Dean Ambrose, Cesaro and Sheamus versus the Hardys, and the main event. If you could only watch one, it's the main event. The main event was really, really good. And if you didn't see the pre-show match, I would go back and watch the pre-show match because that was pretty good too.
I'll have to check that out. That was the one that I missed.
As far as the podcast, we're launching June 14th with the Wednesday show. Haven't confirmed a guest yet, but the options we have for guests right now are all great ones. So you're going to want to tune in. You're going to want to subscribe on iTunes, which you can't do yet because we don't have a feed up. But it's going to be called From the Top Rope, hosted by us. It's going to be a lot like this. The Wednesday shows are going to be recapping Raw, SmackDown a little bit, talking about news, and then an interview, like I said. So those might be an hour and a half. I think they're trying to keep us kind of short on time, an hour.
Yeah.
But we'll probably go over because we like to talk a lot.
Yeah. 115 I think is good.
And this is a preview, so if we did something that you like, let us know. If we did something that you didn't like, let us know. And by the time we launch, we'll be very polished. We've done a ton of test shows like this. I think for two guys that have literally never met each other, we have pretty good chemistry.
Yeah, I like you, Octagon Bob.
I like you, Carrabis. I think we're a great tag team. We're going to tag team this shit together.
You know what's going to be even better, though? When we get you to Kowloon, which is here in Boston. That's where all the guys go after their shows. If they're in Manchester, if they're in Lowell, if they're in Boston, they go to Kowloon after. So that's going to be a proud moment for me to get you your first Kowloon experience.
I'm excited. I want like one of those Ribera Steakhouse jackets for Kowloons.
Yeah, you should.
It's because like the Ribera of the United States.
It's a big deal. If you talk to any of the guys, I mean, Kowloon is like a pro wrestling tradition for any of those guys in the locker room. Anytime that they come to do a show, John Cena will always say like, "All right, we'll see you at Kowloon," because they know that's what you do.
Yeah, that's crazy. I'm excited. I said it before we started recording. I might be up there soon for Ring of Honor. Maybe I'll see you. Maybe I won't. You got David Ortiz jersey getting retired.
Yeah,
but
kind of a big
maybe I'll hit it with the boys afterwards.
Yeah, hell yeah. We're definitely gonna make that happen.
All right. This is the first preview episode, the 0 issue, like I said in the beginning, From the Top Rope. Thanks for listening, and tune in on June 14th.